Welcome back to Where the Rubber Meets the Road, a C3 podcast from Capital Life Church. This is Jeff Abiad. This episode is our question and response based on last week's interview with Dane and Michelle Coppini. So if you haven't already, go back and listen to that conversation. Then you'll be ready for these great follow-up questions from our young professionals at Capital Life. As always, C3 had some great questions for Dane and Michelle that took us deeper into their story with practical application. So let's pull into the C3 showroom and see what's under the hood of their lives. Enjoy this Q&R of episode 4 with Dane and Michelle Coppini.
She wants to know, what do you fly?
Thanks for asking. I fly a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Yep.
I fly the U-28. So it's U-28 is a single engine. It's a Pilatus PC-12, which you probably don't know what that is either, which is okay. If you were a doctor and you had some money, but you didn't have enough money to have somebody fly you in a jet, you would fly a PC-12 yourself. So pilot, co-pilot, navigator, and then a guy in the back, an enlisted guy.
If you ever take like a little hopper plane from like Clovis, New Mexico to DFW, it's on that plane.
Yeah.
It's a little like prop plane.
Yes. So we can find you, we can fix your location, and then we can do other things. But that's what we do. We're command and control for special teams, the special forces, to go high-value target hunting.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yay! There it is. Yeah.
So two sensors. There's one in the front and then one in the back that comes down. And then a lot of radios and a lot of equipment to do some neat things. But yeah, equipment, yes. So, but we would, if you were a number one of ISIS or whoever, and wherever I'd be deployed to, we would, that's who we would search. And then we would have the special forces teams. We would lead them in middle of the night to come grab you.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that you said that as if like we were going to do that.
If you happened, yeah, we're very good at what we do. Yeah.
He's got intel.
Yeah.
If you're in this room right now,
If you are in this,
We will find you.
There's actually one circling.
yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier on that you like focus on building community when you move to a new place, especially like being military and moving around a lot. So how do you intentionally do that? I know you said you pray to like have at least one person, but what are some like practical ways that you guys have been able to build community in new places?
Good question.
Yeah,
question.
Great question.
I feel like, my mother told me this when I was younger in regards to men, but it's true for like friends too. She was like, baby, you're a chooser. You're not a beggar, you're a chooser. And so she was talking about like men, like don't be a beggar, be a chooser. But I have put the same concept towards my friends, to be completely honest. So when I go to a new place, I am eyes open looking for the friend the Lord has for me. Constantly like, who is this? And to be honest, here, Julie was the first one I saw preach, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And then we got here, and she was the first one I met, and we went home, and I was like, I think Julie's going to be a really good friend. And go to coffee, meet, and, here we are. So I think part of it is having open eyes, looking intentionally, know yourself enough to know who you're going to click with, and it's okay if you don't click with everybody. I mean, that's just the nature of it. Like, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I'm a lot, right? So I need someone like a Julie sometimes to like balance. We joke that she's the like Ethel to my Lucy, but like, yeah. Anyways, you look for someone that's going to compliment you, know yourself enough to know what that is. And then as far as like community goes, I think vulnerability begets vulnerability. So if you are open, and for us that looks like opening our house, that looks like meals. That's a big part of our group. So when I think there's someone that we might be friends with, or I could be friends with, I'm like, come over, come eat. Let's get come do life with us. And for me, I know I've gotten there with friends when they just pop over. Like, just come over. Yes, there's extra food. I will feed you. I'm Italian. Come in. I will make you something to eat. And then from there, just being intentional, I think, with finding a small group. If you're not, for us, like generally in military, the squadron is kind of a built-in friendship group. And here we didn't have that, which was like, I don't even know what to do without this. And then so we just made it. We were like, all right, so military group, like we're just going to start one, because we know that there's a lot of military that are looking for friends, and there's an understanding when there's a common, job, or even if it's a spouse, there's a you just get it, right? In the military, you just don't understand it unless you're in it. So we started a group for that and then start doing life together. I mean, we have a couple people that are in here that are in our group that we love. But I think that's the basis, I would say.
Yeah. I'm trying to think when we first got here what the difference was, but I think so. And this is probably something that you can apply to multiple things, not necessarily like starting your own small group and doing that, which is where my mind is kind of going right now, but just building community itself. If you can, and I think I'm saying this for myself, if you can, number one, know yourself, okay? The more confident you are in knowing who you are, right? And the skills that you have and what you bring. And I would say this to when I was instructing people in the squadron, if you're a pilot, whatever it is, you need to find a niche that what you bring. Okay, we've all been taught you're different, branches of the same vine. You all bring something new. If you just show up, you're just gonna keep showing up, right? You may find a good friend, you may find a purpose, you may find something to do. If you don't really know who you are and what you bring, then you're gonna just keep showing up, and you're gonna realize after a time, like, I guess this was okay, right? This was fun, but it really wasn't. It didn't But if you come and you know who you are and you know who God created you to be, and even if you don't, you're on that journey to get there, and you roll into a group like this, and you're like, this is what I bring and this is what I can give, you will find community. You will build community. You will be a part of the community, and will keep you coming back, right? And then you'll feel a part of something, and it'll grow, and it's beautiful. That, for me, I think for us, when we rolled into this church, we knew we were community builders. We are not going to be part of the worship team. We're not going to be part of children's church. Shell's good, but we're just not. It's just not. We're not going to even be greeters because we show up late to second service.
All the time.
Right? So, I mean, there's things like we know our limitations, but we also know that this is what we are good at. And so we are going to be confident in rolling in. And when we did that first, nobody knew who we were. But we had some fun thing that we said and whatever. I can't even remember what, when all the small group leaders get up and say, this is my group. From that initial moment and one time after that, we've had to kind of close the group off because there's too many people to fit in our small house, right?
And I would just add too, I think if you, part of that is having open eyes, but the other part of it is be the friend that you want.
Yes.
So a lot of times people, I think everybody wants deep connection. Everybody does. We're built for it. I think we're wired for it. So if you don't have that, instead of going in with the mindset, I hope I find my friend, go in with who needs a friend, who around me is desperate for connection as well, and how can I love the people that God has placed in me, whether that's this church or your work or at church on Sunday, bigger church, or walking your dog and you see a neighbor and you go, how can I love them? But I think if it changes from that mindset, then it's not just I'm trying to fill a loneliness or which we need, but it's I think it's a gift and it's what we're built for, to love people like that. I think that will help.
And it's still awkward, right? I go to a new place, it's awkward. You're like, what do I do? What do I say? How do I, but if you know who you are and you know who God created you to be, and you've asked and you've kind of prayed that, how can I love other people and see them the way that God sees them, then you will see everybody not as an assignment, not as just this is a human being loved by God. Maybe they are, how can I engage with them, right? Because we're all one team, one fight, one spirit type thing.
On a totally different track, Dane, I think that you've mentioned in the past that your college was technically pacifist. Is that accurate? So I'm curious the path from that, actual path, sure, but more the thought path from that to kind of where you were at with the military.
That's a good question. I've only had to ever answer it twice when I went back to George Fox, because that's when you're kind of face to face with people that I respect and educators, professors that I respect a lot, who wouldn't lift a finger when somebody would be breaking into their house and harming their family, right? That isn't me, and that's okay. And if that's you, that's okay, I hope. And I hope you don't feel any different towards me. But I don't know if I really honestly have come to terms with it, right? I mean, because faced with the reality, and this is probably, I've been directly responsible for taking people's lives. They were doing bad things, right? The U.S. military does a very good job now of not just indiscriminately killing, right? In many of the wars that we're in. because everything's vetted, and it's almost like too much at times, because you're like, you know what they're doing. I mean, especially when you just, not that you've searched this out or have seen the ISIS videos, but like, you know, to see individuals, like we were overhead when they were, I don't know if I can, we were overhead when they were like in the act of doing some of the crazy things that the most heinous things that you can do to other individuals, right? And so to be able to be there and stop that, a lot of times we weren't there to stop it, but like to see it on video, and then to have to be like, hey, you're seeing this too. What are we doing, right? We're here. We can do something. We can stop it. And sometimes to be able to, and sometimes to not be able to. War sucks, right? And I think that's what, it was always interesting, because there are individuals who are kind of fangs out, is what we call it, and we don't necessarily have the most respect for those individuals, because you shouldn't wake up every day wanting to go out, even at war, right, to take someone else's life, because you're still taking a human being. It's still my life. I love my life, right? I love everybody's lives in here, whether I know you or not. You are an important human being creation, whether you believe in God or not. So how do I justify that? I honestly, a lot of times, and maybe this is from what I went through, I don't think about it. I think I do have a grace. I don't lose any sleep at night. Good, and so I appreciate that. But I don't know if I've ever fully come to terms with it. Or will, I don't know. But yeah, tough question. Thanks, Deborah.
So I guess part of leading, it's kind of two parts. Like, how do you, one, make it sustainable and I guess like take rest when you need it, but also how do you deal with feeling unqualified at times, if you do?
I think the rest part, I would say, goes back to knowing yourself and knowing what you're capable of giving. Having been raised in the church and watched a lot of people get burned out and hurt, and I feel like there's different categories, and maybe you can speak to this too, but there's some people who are like, we will give everything and serve, and they're the first ones there, and their last one's gone, and they're doing. And then there's some people that show up and they don't do anything. They just show up and then they leave at the end of the day. And then, sometimes there's some people like speckled in the middle, but how do you sustain, give where you can, and not get burnt out? I think part of that is what you do is just as important as what you don't do. So who you're spending time with, as in like with the Lord, like he is my everything, is my charging station. So making sure that I'm not motivated by this desire to be holy or be righteous or be a certain person, but I'm really motivated from, oh my gosh, I love Lord so much and he loves these people that are around me. And for us, that looks like small group. That is 100% our passion and where we are called. And so for me, that's like, okay, once I have people in my small group, all right, Lord, what do you say about each one of them? And going to him constantly to get that fuel for, whether it's just opening our house or what's the next thing that we're going to do on our study, but making sure that I'm plugged in with him. And then also boundaries, just personal boundaries, which to be honest, I've never really had a problem with it. I don't know. I'm only child and pretty independent. So like, I have no problem saying no. So just saying, I don't really have this to give. So like, for example, we volunteered at first to be on the prayer ministry. I love prayer. I'm super passionate about it. If you want prayer afterwards, come see me. I will pray over you. I love it. Super gung-ho about it. And then about a month in, we realized like, oh, first of all, we're never there every Sunday. We travel a ton. So like that was a bad commitment on our part. And secondly, we're actually tired on Sundays. Like we give a lot during the week, and Saturdays, like I don't have it to give from a healthy place. So like I can volunteer as a fill-in, but I know that if I was to say every single Sunday I'm going to be here, it's either a commitment I can't fulfill well, or two, I'm going to be doing it and get burnt out because I don't have it to give anymore. So I think knowing those things, and but then also again choosing to give where you have natural gifts or passions and talents. I think that helps like see through. And I forgot the second part of your question. Oh, if you feel unqualified. Yeah. Let me think about that. Answer that first part first.
First part, I'll try to make it. She kind of touched on it, and I touched on it a little bit earlier. If you're not taking time to continue to try to understand yourself and who God created you to be, then you're going to struggle a lot with what you're supposed to be doing and how you can give. Once you figure that out, then you will know what you can give, and you know what you're supposed to give. It makes it so much easier to, I have no problem saying, I was kind of I was told we were doing prayer group, right? So I was like, okay, well, she's going to be here, so we're driving together, so I guess I'll be here, right? And I would do it, but I would do it not with a
begrudgingly.
but I do it begrudgingly. But at that same time, I know that God can use me in that, right? So I'm not like, oh, I don't have to be here, right? But like that was kind of but I just knew that it's not something I'm going to volunteer for and I'm going to commit myself to because I know I can't commit to it as much as they would need me to, right? Same thing for all the other ministries, right? There are seasons when I'm all in on a certain ministry, and there are other seasons where I am not. And I know myself, though, and I know that I will not get burned out because I can say no. And I do not feel guilty about saying no. But I know the things that I am passionate about and qualified for and that I pour into, that is that no person here can tell me otherwise because I know what I've been told, right? Mm-hmm. I know who I am. So it doesn't matter. But I also know that I'm human and I'm fallible. Right? Fallible? Fallible. And I fall sometimes, okay? So I'm fallible. So you're allowed to make mistakes as you grow through life until you die because you're never going to be perfect. So with the grace that you give yourself, knowing with the confidence of who you are, who God created you to be, to roll into any position, whether you think you're qualified or you're not qualified, to me, it doesn't matter. I am going to, and this is me aggressive.
It does matter sometimes, right? Like if I went up to worship team and was like, put me on drums, I'm sorely unqualified to be in that position, right?
Who would tell you?
You would,
We would tell you, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Even if you were giving
But
me
I don't
mic to
think
sing,
if you knew yourself,
you're
you wouldn't do that.
unqualified. If you what?
If you knew yourself, you wouldn't do that.
Right, but I'm still unqualified for it.
I think from the church perspective too, you get put in this unique role of trying to help people realize, and some of them may not know, maybe blissfully unaware. We get a real solid example of this when it comes to auditioning people, as musicians.
Yeah.
And it's fine. I think, though, I've been a part of church ministries, and so use this as a metaphor for life and everything, where the solution is, we'll just turn this person down. And that's not helping anybody,
Right.
Because everybody's sidestepping around this weird thing, and this person doesn't know, and they're not aware, and they can't grow either. And some of the most outstanding members of our team have been ones that had to re-audition and actually end up finding out that I actually excel more at this than I did at that, and they're great at it. And I think, gosh, what a disservice it would have been to that individual to just act like it was okay. Like, oh, hey, I want to be a greeter. And you're like the grumpiest person on a Sunday morning. Like, maybe
nobody
we
likes
could try.
you.
Yeah.
Stay home.
You try to be kind and have these conversations because, some of us are more aware of what we are and what we have and what we carry than others. But hopefully as a church, we can be that for each other.
I think too, making the distinction between I'm unqualified and I'm unworthy, right? Because a lot of times those feelings, it's not like, for example, me on drums or on a mic, right? Like I don't necessarily feel unworthy to be up there, but I am unqualified to be up there because I sang in choir, but nobody needs to hear me alone on the mic, much alone on a drum set, right? So I'm unqualified, but am I worthy to be up there? 100%. I'm just as worthy as him to lead worship. Why? Because I have the same God. And he says that I'm a daughter of Christ. Therefore, I'm worthy. He's the one that qualifies me for anything that I do. Whether or not I have qualities or giftings in those areas that should be stewarded or worked out, I do not, which is why I'm not on worship team. Again, you're welcome that I'm not on worship team. It would be not fun. Not fun. But am I worthy? 100%. 100%. So I think if you can you get that key, and then it's just a stewarding the gifts that God has given you and not a grasping for, I need to be good enough to be worthy enough to have this position. Because that's really, I think that's the crux for me of where a lot of that shame or those feelings can come from, is from, I don't feel worthy.
Good.
Yeah, that's really good.
Side note, I did play drums in church one time. And it was very awkward. It was, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I did the entire time, trying to stay on
I would
key.
be like, watermelon. In choir, that's
All right, so 2 parts, kind of just how you guys mentally prepped yourselves for marriage, and if just kind of the steps leading up to that. I've heard of classes through the church, premarital classes, just kind of what you did there. And then kind of one focusing on you, how you were able to kind of recommit yourself emotionally after what you experienced beforehand.
Yeah. How did you prepare for marriage to me?
Oh.
Emotionally. It took her longer than it took me. I'll say that.
I was single and ready to go to Ireland and do ministry and get my master's, and that's literally was the track that I was on. And then I met him, and it was like that whole thing, that all changed. But how did I prepare? We actually didn't do prenatal counseling. We had, because he was 4.5 hours away and could only come see me for the weekends. So it was like we just could never figure out the time. But I would say highly recommend premarital counseling. Unless it doesn't happen, but make sure we had people in our lives that were intimately involved in our dating, and we were very, very open with questions and concerns. And I went on double dates and had older couples that mentored, and I feel like that was very key. And then 2, steward your singleness, steward that very well. The healthier you are single, the easier marriage will be, and you will run into bumps, but the more healthy friendships you have too with the opposite sex, I feel like that really prepped me for what I wanted to look for in a man and what I knew I would complement me well and what I would be a good help for. But yeah, that's
so. I mean, yeah, there's nothing
a lot of prayer,
maybe traditional necessarily in that regard as far as classes. I think we would have if they were offered.
I made you read a book. Or like 2.
Yeah, honestly,
read this.
The 5 love languages still today.
That's a good one.
One of there was another one, love and respect.
I can't remember
love
the one
and
that we did
respect
too.
was I appreciated because I didn't realize that they were like that men and women thought about it completely different, naive at the time. But the 5 love languages still today, simple, and it is powerful, right? If you know what you love and what you receive, and you know what your partner does, and you just focus on those, even like it makes it so much easier. But so being intentional, have to be intentional about like pouring into who, and I said this 50,000 times, who you are and who the other person is, right? And what you are together, right? That whole, it's not just, I think a lot of times with the moment to moment, you're thinking this decision, right, is going to be your lifetime together. So how can you best prepare yourself now, single, and then how can you best support and pour into her, single, to then become a team now together to be even more powerful as you move forward and build a legacy together. The tons of people who were involved intimately in our lives, and we were very open with that because community is key.
Like get raw and honest with your questions with people that are in your lives. Like I remember asking Dana, who we lived with at the time, how did you not have sex before marriage? I don't understand. This is so hard. All my friends lied. They were like, it's so easy. I'm like, this is not easy. This is hard. I don't understand how you did this, right? Like have friends that you can go and ask these questions to, and then ones that are asking you after date, how did it go? Like, how did it go? You're in that car, the windows got steamy, you need to come inside. Like have friends that are going to ask you hard questions and older friends that are already in the stage of life that you're going. So you have something to look forward to and something to run after with a like visual. Like this is what I want my marriage to look like. That's who you surround yourself with, and that will help you get there.
And then for me emotionally, and I'll try to make it quick, I deployed for 9 months. But, I say that to say, I literally begged them to go. As soon as it was right when I got done with training, everything happened. It was a whirlwind, and, of course, my world was rocked. But I knew I needed to grieve, and I don't grieve well in a community, even though I'm all about community. I grieve by myself, or I did, and I still kind of do. But that was, I basically, for 9 months, journaled, cried myself to sleep, did the whole thing right by myself. There's only one person that found out, this through the whole time. But that was me being intentional, knowing that I needed to do something. I needed to release something for 9 months. Probably about 6 months in, and it wasn't healthy. I wouldn't say that that's healthy. I just was healthy for me and what I needed to do at the time because I knew myself. And I also had an unhealthy relationship that I told her, I'm using you for your emotional support, right? Wasn't, that right, wrong, or indifferent. But if the healthy version of me would have relied on people that I loved and trusted more to do that. But fast forward 9 months, came back from deployment, Match.com became a thing. Somehow I did a couple other things. It wasn't really me. It wasn't that, but somehow she popped up. And the first conversation that we had, and this is when I knew that this is not exactly what I needed, but at the same time, and was God, but was healthy, was that she talked to me for 5 hours the first time on the phone that night. And she was encouraging me by the end of it.
I didn't think I was going to date
You
him.
will
this poor
find,
guy.
yes, you will find someone.
Honestly.
You are this, you are this, you are this, you are this, right? And it was, I knew in that moment, the knower, right? The knower in me. I was like, this girl, if she's real, from the profile, right? You never know, right? The profile, right? If she's real,
she's not catfishing
if
me.
she's real, this woman is going to be his wife material. I literally knew it. Fast forward 30 days, absolutely knew it. She didn't know it. First time we saw each other. First time we saw each other, okay, you're real, right? I needed just to verify. Asked her to date me, and she said absolutely not. So
I just met him. I was like, the first time I meet him.
I was aggressive. I was very intense.
This is like within a half hour of me meeting the guy for the very first time.
We talked every day.
I know, but like I didn't met him. He sits me down on the bed and grabs my hand, and he's like, "So, will you be my girlfriend?" I said, "No." I said, "I just met you."
Yeah, just like that too. She was like,
"No." I was like, "This is way too intense." And then like 3 months later, I was like, "I will marry you. Let's go."
Yeah.
So I went fast after that, but
yeah.
Yeah, I will say our dating was not necessarily typical too, because he was grieving. So a lot of deeper stuff that maybe doesn't come up in the first couple months or even year of dating, we were walking through immediately because he was still grieving. And I didn't necessarily think that I was going to be dating, much less marrying him. But that created a connection that got us, I think, closer than would have normally happened in dating.
But got to be vulnerable. Got to be intentional.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I think your life stories and how it comes together, and even now being in the military and the travel and having to be deliberate and intentional about community is a great way to sum up everything that we're about as C3, Yeah. And what it is to live in this place. We live in a really unique part of the world and part of the country where it's a lot of transient people and a lot of jobs changing, a lot of people moving, a lot of short-term things. And it's more and more important for us as the church in this sort of modern era where you're not like families camped around a church building in a small town, but it's you're all mobile. Everybody's everywhere to say, how can I be intentional about community and being the church where I am in this season right now? So,
totally.
Yeah, thank you guys for being a really great model of that.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming to the C3 Garage.
Thanks for having us.
Really enjoyed having you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Give it up. Thanks again to Dane and Michelle for visiting us at C3 and being so willing to share their personal experience. If you are interested in joining our Christ-centered community of young professionals, you can find us Tuesday nights at Capital Life Church. Our full schedule is online at capitallife.org/C3. Not just Tuesdays, but regular events and outings in and around the DC metro area. We would love to have you. And stay tuned for another great podcast interview coming soon. For our final session, we have a Capital Life pastor and their powerhouse spouse coming to give us a couple's perspective on life and ministry and everything in between. I know you'll love our fun and insightful conversation about what faith looks like where the rubber meets the road. Until then, this is Jeff Abiad. We'll talk to you next time.